Hi everyone, welcome to the second webinar that Angular Zone is organizing. We have today Mike Brocchi talking about the Angular CLI. We are really excited about what Mike will tell us today. Before starting, I want to introduce Wasim. He's a co-host for this webinar. He's a co-organizer and Angular contributor for the docs in French, and it's also an Angular GD.
Universal.
Hi, Wasim.
Hi guys.
How are you doing there?
Thanks, Gerard.
Okay, so
Great. It's quite hot in here.
very good, very good. So I'll pass it to you now, Mike. Thank you for having the time to have us with you.
No problem. I appreciate you having me on to talk about the CLI and get some people hopefully up to speed with the later version rather than the
Awesome.
existing version.
So can you tell us a little bit about Angular CLI?
Sure. The Angular CLI is a product that is currently in beta, and we are working to facilitate and make Angular 2 development and environment setup a lot easier, including building, testing, generating, deployments, everything, soup to nuts from the beginning to the end of your project.
Awesome.
It's geared around Angular 2, so just to be clear, we're not talking about anything Angular 1 related. It's all based around Angular 2.
Cool. So what are you going to show us first? What have you planned?
Sure. So first of all, just to be clear, I'm going to show things that are working off of the master branch. So some of these things are released to NPM, some are not. There's going to be a release put together relatively soon that'll have a lot of these features out on NPM for everybody to be able to play with under the @webpack install. So if you install the Angular CLI with @webpack, it's going to be stored under there for now until it actually goes live as the default install.
I see.
So you want me to get started with sharing my screen and get things rolling?
Yeah, let's see how it looks.
Perfect. Let me go ahead and share that out. Screen share. And are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Perfect. So what I have here is I just created a demo application. I haven't done anything with it yet other than open it up in the my VS Code. So I have that open here. And I also went ahead and NPM linked it because I'm using the local version off of master, not a globally installed version, as most of you will have. So all I'm going to do is to start off is just run ng build. Now this will look a little bit different than the default version out there. You'll see that this is actually running through Webpack now as the build process. Rather than running through System.js with Brocchi, it's using Webpack, which is that decision was come to by the team based off of feedback from the community. A lot of people were having trouble setting up third-party modules in their build system and integrating different pieces in with System.js. So the switch was made, or is being made, over to Webpack to make things easier for developers.
And what do you think are the main features that Webpack brings to the table?
Speed, community adoption. So I think there's a lot more content out on the web for people to take advantage of. Yes, exactly, resources for people to utilize out on the web. But at the same time, right now, the Webpack configuration is all being black boxed. So you don't have any tie-ins to the build system quite yet. It's planned in the future. It'll be coming to be able to do different plugins or loaders, whatever you need within the Webpack process. But right now, it's just black box, and it handles everything that I've been able to throw at it thus far.
And in your experience, what would you be, when you are using Webpack, comparing it to what was before with System.js, would you notice anything like maybe performance improvements or build times?
Yeah, I find the build times to be on par with before, probably a little bit faster as well. But the reliability, I found that potentially some issues previously with build times and build processes with the live reload that I ended up having to reload or restart that process more often than what I have been recently with Webpack.
So very happy about the change then.
Absolutely, yes. I couldn't be happier. So one of the things that people had an issue with was production builds. So I have another command window open here, and I'm going to shrink this one down.
Okay.
See if we can get this a little bit smaller, maybe.
Yeah, that works.
There we go. Hopefully you're still able to see that there on the left. And what I'm going to do is over here on the right is I'm going to run the build process again, except I'm going to run it with a production flag. Just to be able to compare the sizes of what we're able to get by minifying and tree shaking, all those niceties that we're able to get out of the Webpack implementation.
Cool.
So you'll notice on the left, our main.bundle.js is 2.5 megs.
So that's the first asset on the, table, isn't it? On the left. Okay.
Yes. So that's the default build. And then here, this is just some warnings about things that are not going to be included due to tree shaking. And you'll notice here, and I'm going to shrink that down a little bit more, hopefully be able to see a little bit more.
Yeah, I think I can see it. So this is...
Yeah, showing the main bundle down to 960 kilobytes.
So that's less than a megabyte against like 2.5.
Exactly.
Wow, that's a lot.
Right, and then it'll get even smaller. So I was going to talk about this later on, but it's okay to throw in here. Ahead of time compilation, that's going to really drive sizes down because then we won't need to include the compiler for production builds. So we can take advantage of the ahead of time compilation of templates and styles.
So there's still room for improvement then. So we can still, shave more a little bit this megabyte.
Absolutely. Yeah, make that as small as possible.
Yeah, really great news.
Yes. Wasim, did you have a question?
Yeah, I have. There's a question on the chat room.
Sure.
Can you explain a little bit the outputs you have on your left console? I mean, all those pack chunks, name, assets.
Let's see here. I am not totally sure of exactly what each of these pieces are, but I know that things have been chunked up. So there's 3 main chunks there, if you can see 0, 1, and 2. Obviously styles are the styles that are being brought in. Main.bundle is the main application. I think that I'm not sure exactly what the inline is. So to be honest, I'm not really sure. The move to Webpack was not something that I personally worked on. I've been focused more in terms of my involvement with the blueprints and alignment to the style guide versus with the build process. But I could, if somebody wants to ping me either in the meetup chat or on YouTube or through Twitter, I can definitely get better answers for you from what's coming out here. But this is standard Webpack output that I've seen from other projects as well.
That's pretty recent, anyway.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's compiling the project right out of the get-go. It's also providing us with ng-serve, which I know that we've seen before. I'm just going to run ng-serve. It's going to run through that build process, put our application into a watch mode. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put my browser into a little bit of a layout so that we can see exactly what's going on here. So you can see that the bundle is up and running, it's valid, and I just have a little shortcut here to be able to run through and see that our application is running. We can come in here, I'm going into the application's root template, and I'm just going to change this here to Angular zone, and that is going to then trigger our compilation of our application and reload that in the browser.
Yeah, we can see that on the bottom left.
Excellent. Also, same thing works if we were to change our component TS file, excuse me, and this is going to be our super app. I'm just changing something in the TypeScript, and notice that's also going to trigger recompilation and reload live in the browser as well.
Yeah.
So did you guys ship the the hot module loader?
No, that is not in yet. I believe it's being discussed and talked about getting that in.
Okay.
But my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the main reason that works is because the application state is being stored using NGRX store, correct?
Yep.
So the state is stored there. So we don't don't want to drive people to use any particular technology. The idea is to keep your style of your application in line with the style guide, but not necessarily force people into doing their development with NGRX. I actually like using that myself, but we also don't want to push people into that paradigm. So if they want to, then we can look into supporting that for those people, but not for everybody because not everybody will be using that.
Fair enough, yeah.
Okay. So the next thing I want to show is the idea of styles. So one of the changes in here in our Angular CLI.json is a file in the root of the project that provides configuration for our application. One of the piece I want to show you here is the styles. Is new here. It allows you to pull in global styles that aren't necessarily related to a component, because obviously Angular 2 has its own mechanism for handling styles for individual components, which is documented well. But to be able to provide a global style, so if you want to use Bootstrap to be able to pull something in, I'm going to go ahead and do that now.
I think this links to a question that we saw before today on I think it was on Twitter.
Yes.
So that's an excellent example.
Yes. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to do an npm install Bootstrap at next, which is going to bring in the alpha from version 4 of Bootstrap, and we're going to let that install. And as that's installed,
I think Bootstrap is a pretty good example. It's you know, everyone is using it.
Oh, if we count everybody as just me, then yes, absolutely.
Well, there's a lot of people moving into material styles, but yeah.
There are very, very true. I'm going to make this a little bit smaller. Hopefully you can still see that. Can you still read that?
Yes.
Okay. Even though I made the code change here, it hasn't been updated because I stopped serving the application. Any changes that you make within the configuration file will require you to stop and reserve your application because it needs to pick up the configuration, which is read just once and just kept in memory.
Okay.
So as that's wrapping it up, all I did was add into our component here, I just added a button with some Bootstrap classes on it, a button and button primary, with some handy-dandy text to remind us that we're here through Angular Zone. Just a little bit of marketing for you guys.
Very good. Very subtle.
All right, so what I'm going to do in here is not only am I going to reference the styles file, which is just local within our project, I'm also going to, while this npm install finishes up here, I'm going to reference the Bootstrap CSS, which is up a directory from the source directory into Bootstrap, dist, CSS, and just referencing bootstrap min.css. So just so I do. Go ahead.
This also will apply for
so,
example,
Mike,
animation.
how do you...
Yes, it will if you're bringing in a CSS library for animation or whatever that they provide, then yes, that's how you would pull that in for styles.
Cool.
Go ahead, Wasim. What did you have?
Wasim?
How do you handle the JavaScript files?
Same thing. So the scripts file or section here will be pull in global JS files. So if you want to pull in jQuery, and we've been debating this, so the reason why this was added is so that any scripts that you reference here will get loaded to the window object. So, which is very important for jQuery. Not so much for jQuery; it can run in a non-window environment, but for plugins that require jQuery to be part of the window.
Cool.
So I'm just going to reserve the application up here, and we'll see that we now have our button, and it'll look nice and primary.
Well, I'm sure there are some people excited about seeing this Bootstrap button there.
Absolutely, yeah. It's a button that we've got.
Fa-
It's got like this little hover thing. We haven't done anything with it, but that's okay. We're not really going to be doing anything. Just talking about pulling in Bootstrap here. So that's great. And we got CSS and we have some global CSS, which helps us out. But at the same time, not everybody wants to do that. A lot of people, including myself, want to be able to override different things using Sass.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a more advanced scenario, isn't it?
Absolutely, it's a little bit more robust for the majority of users. So I'm coming in here, and all I did was change the reference instead of being to CSS to SCSS. And that's not actually going to pick that up appropriately because I changed my configuration, which means I need to reload.
Okay.
But we still want things to look the same. So I'm going to bring Bootstrap back in. Except instead of going to the distribution directory there, I'm going to bring in Bootstrap's SCSS, which ships with the NPM package, and pulling in the Sass file here. So I'm going to import that in, and I'm referencing that from within the styles file, which is referenced here.
Okay.
So I'm just going to restart that up.
So that will bring the same defaults.
Yes, absolutely. So here you'll see no difference except for the fact that we're doing this through Sass versus just the raw CSS that's being shipped.
Yeah, gotcha.
So while it's loading, I have another question from the chat room.
Yes.
Do you guys still ship the mobile toolkit? The Angular mobile toolkit?
Yeah, there's a mobile flag for when you're newing up a new project, and I believe that is still working. It will be working when we do get to final, so that will be there.
Right.
All right. So what we have here is now the application still looks great, and it has our style, and we still have Bootstrap parity but through Sass this time.
Yeah, very good.
With the power of having Sass there, we can also override maybe the primary color. I'm a big fan of orange, so we're just going to make the primary color orange. So you can come in here and directly within this styles file, or we can put this in a variables file of our own liking to import in whatever other CSS values that we want to put within there.
Yeah, I've used this setup and it works really well.
Yeah, it's very, very helpful to be able to override those things because not everybody's going to want to have their primary color being blue or whatever the default is coming out.
Very true.
So now we've brought in a third-party CSS framework, which is great, but not everybody is only going to be bringing in CSS. People want to bring in JavaScript libraries as well, especially ones intended for Angular 2. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do an npm install of a library of ng-bootstrap, which is in the process of being updated for Angular 2. It's already been updated to RC5, which is great.
Awesome.
I'm just going to bring that in. I'm going to do an npm install on that. And as you know, if you're going to bring something in with RC5, the way you pull that in is through our app module.
So I would like to add something about ng-bootstrap.
Yes, go ahead.
I think they have the most extensive implementation. They use Bootstrap version 4, I believe.
Yes.
And they also have a nice implementation for models that I think is not available in other versions.
Correct. My understanding is that that's going to be available in their next release, or at least an updated version of their models, from what I was seeing. So hopefully that'll be coming in relatively soon.
Cool stuff.
So what I'm going to do is we now have or we will, as soon as that npm install finishes, an import that we can import their module from their database. What? Are we good?
No, we are going to bring the ng module, polemic.
Yes, yeah. Oh, so that's the other thing. So we are with the Webpack version, we are at parity with RC5. So everything here is being done with modules. So in here we export our app module, that points to our app component, and we are bootstrapping the module rather than bootstrapping the component as with previous release candidates.
Okay, I can see you are using entry components.
Yes, yes, yes. There was actually we got a pull request last night that removes that. That's not needed to be there.
Okay.
Apparently, I haven't gotten the latest of master today, so no, maybe
That's
that
fine.
hasn't been
That's
merged
fine.
in.
Nobody saw that.
No, 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 no. That's fine. It's fine. It was there. It doesn't need to be there. It's extra. If you have a component that may not be referenced by your component tree, you can still pull in other components as well. That's what entry components used for, but here it's overkill because we're bootstrapping that component.
True.
So no problem. Bugs are bugs, and especially since we're still beta, so that's okay. So I'm just going to run this back up. And then let's open up the app.component HTML. So now that we've got this handy-dandy Bootstrap library, so we have Bootstrap, the CSS framework, which is great, but the interactions that come by default with Bootstrap are through jQuery and a Bootstrap JS file. And the jQuery development pattern or platform and the Angular don't always mix. So that's what ng Bootstrap fills in. It kind of gives you the Bootstrap interaction, but in a more Angular paradigm.
Yeah.
So I just stole this HTML directly from their examples, and what it's doing is it's turning this div into a dropdown, which has a button, and then it has a drop-down menu inside of it.
Nice.
And it's just notifying that this button is going to be what toggles the drop-down. So we see that loaded here, and whenever we click on it or click away from it, it toggles the actual drop-down.
So this will be a more Angular 2 flavor of the Bootstrap library, which will be, I think, more recommended at the end of the day.
Absolutely, and then I think there's also an isOpen or an open property that you can specify on the drop-down menu. So if I wanted to tie this button, the click, to specify that this one is now open, then that could be done through the component and handling the events versus tied to the DOM, as the typical jQuery examples will show.
Well, that covers third-party libraries. That also covers external CSS and JavaScript. Well, we are doing a good progress, Mike.
Absolutely, I think that covers a lot of what most people are going to run into when they're doing the development, to be able to A, make it look good through CSS, and B, to make it work through the code that they write and also through third-party modules.
Nice.
And the simplification here of only doing an npm.
So Mike.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry.
That's okay.
Does this third-party support, is it on npm or on master?
Technically, it's on both. The default Angular CLI will not have that in there, but if you were to install with the @webpack, so I'll just show that here. So if you were to do an npm install of Angular CLI with the tag of @webpack, that will have the simplification of the third-party module installs. And then obviously, of course, you also want to install that globally. So don't forget your -g.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, right.
And one other thing to mention is this version, I mean the Webpack version, uses TypeScript too, right?
In terms of for development of your application, or Webpack itself?
I mean, yeah, with the configuration files, all the types stuff. I checked it this afternoon, and
yeah, everything you have in your project is TypeScript. I actually don't think.
I mean, TypeScript 2.
Yes,
version
I'm sorry.
2,
Yes,
like,
yes. So if we look at package, JSON,
yeah.
maybe.
Because you guys, there's no more typings.json file.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yes. So we're not
see
using typings anymore. It's using @types to be able to pull that in.
Yeah,
And
that's it.
Great. Finally.
Awesome.
Yes, I think that's still in beta right now, but it'll be coming out of beta hopefully relatively soon.
Really shiny toy.
Absolutely, yeah. So third-party module or party module integration is very straightforward and very easy. There's been a few that I pulled into the current application that I'm working on, including at NG Bootstrap, and they've gone incredibly seamlessly with the Webpack update to automatically pull those in without having to go through and configure System.js, which I don't understand very well myself.
Yeah, no problem.
So that's all I wanted to show today, but there was a few things that I wanted to talk about.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I know which ones.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, don't give everything away. Hey, look, now I'm going to turn off screen sharing here. Perfect. All right, yeah, I'm here now. My face that you haven't seen for the last 15, 20 minutes. So I want to give a picture of what's still coming within the CLI. So as part of the router, the changes within the different routers, we had temporarily disabled the idea of route generation. And we are currently exploring how we can bring route generation back in a way that makes more sense to developers. Maybe it may involve actually creating routes, but
Okay.
it will definitely be circled around the idea of generating modules and feature modules or different types of modules, whether or not there's a shared root module, to be able to support the different paradigms that people are going to be using modules for.
And regarding this lazy loading, have you seen or have you implemented any like feature just focused on this lazy loading of components using the router, or this is still?
Yes. So the build process within the CLI will support running and creating lazy routes as part of the module. So whenever you think of lazy routes, think of it more of a post-loaded module versus that the route itself is being lazy. So while the route will be pointing to an instance of a module in an indirect kind of way, it'll have to be a string representation to point to the new or the lazy module versus a direct reference to it. So we'll be able to resolve those and build those.
It will be pointing to a root component within a module, which would be the module being loaded lazily.
Correct. And each module that's being brought in lazily can also have its own child routes defined within it. So we're going to get performance increases there as well for users.
Yeah, really exciting. Really looking forward to see that implemented.
Yeah, we've already done the preliminary work of serving those up and building those. It's just a matter of providing the tooling and the commands from the command line to be able to generate the modules that will be loaded that way.
Yeah. So we just went like really quick over the NG modules.
Yes.
You have anything to tell about it, or you are comfortable with the new NG module? Kind of layout, project layout.
I am getting there. I'm still trying to get my head around a few things, namely services, and how to include those and provide those so that they're provided as singletons. But that will get there soon enough, and I'll have my head fully around that. But I'm working on the idea of generating modules from the CLI.
Okay.
So less of the headache will be transferred down to users of the CLI. You just understand what a module is and say, hey, I want to create a feature module, or I want to create this. We're still working on the semantics of what those commands will be called, whether or not it's generate feature or generate route or generate module or whatever it ends up being. We're still trying to work through that so that we can generate the appropriate things and make it as clear as possible for users.
Yeah, I think we are all, getting used to this new mental model. So as time goes by, I think we will get more comfortable, and this will just, fade and disappear.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. And it's great that third-party modules or third-party component makers are taking advantage of modules as well. as you saw with NG Bootstrap, to be able to have that there right off the get-go. And all you have to do to be able to use that throughout the application, or at least through that module, is to import it and ES6 import it, and then specify it as an imported module. And then you're off to the races and using it.
Yeah, true. Have you got any other things that you want to bring in?
Feedback. If anybody has feedback from what they've used of the CLI, we definitely are listening to feedback and definitely want to capture as much as we can, good, bad, whatever. Obviously, we listen to the community in terms of the switch to Webpack, so the community is definitely influencing what we are doing with the CLI. So.
Okay, very good. So if if there is any feedback around Angular CLI, please let us know. You can use Twitter, or you can use the meetup group, or just ping Brocco is the Twitter handler, and he will be happy to give you that information, or just collect that feedback. Let's see if there was him. Are there any other questions that you?
Yeah, we have a question about routes.
Cool.
With the current CLI, how do you generate routes?
That's a really easy answer, which I started to cover a little bit. You don't generate routes with the CLI right now. Like I said, with all the flux, with the different versions of the different routers that were available, we disabled that. But you get I believe you get an app. Let me check real quick as I'm answering. So I believe you get an app.routes by default out of the CLI. Or maybe you don't. I'm checking in the project that I generated here. So bear with me. And we're not generating that right now. But the orchestration of creating a routes file is rather straightforward. The documentation on Angular.io for routes is actually rather strong and rather helpful in terms of generating a route file. So all you have to do is just specify a path and the component that path points to. So as of right now, it's a manual process, but like I said, we're looking at the idea of how to best add route generation back in through modules, or whether or not it's just going to be through module generation, or if it's going to also be its own piece to generate routes as well. So it's coming in some way, shape, or form in the future, relatively near future.
Okay, I think we are going to wrap up the webinar. Thank you very much for taking the time and going through all these different scenarios. I think it will help people to understand these new features, and they are bringing a lot. So we saw how you. Using Webpack, we can shrink down the size of the bundles. We saw how to include external CSS and JavaScript. We also saw the example of NG Bootstrap. I think that's a really common scenario. And then we talk about what's coming. So I think it was a really nice session that you brought today. So thank you very much. And
I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, no.
Hopefully, people are able to learn and take advantage of the CLI.
Yeah, totally. So, Wasim, you want to wrap up? Can you hear us, Wasim?
Wait, hear me now? Yeah, I think the connection is lost here.
We can.
So yeah, just wanted to thank Mike and all the team.
Oh.
Yeah, do you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Hey, do you hear me?
Yeah.
We great. Yeah, I want to thank you guys about all the hard work you're doing for the CLI, and so many people are looking forward to the final release.
Not only you guys, but also me as well.
So thanks.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yep.
So see you soon, and
Yeah, you too.
just, you know, keep in touch.
Will do.
Bye. Ciao.